So first of all, in terms of the collective capacity to grieve, goes back to Brian, what you were saying earlier in our pre-conversation about that will require really working against the state's role in making certain lives ungrievable, right? In order
Right.
to maintain injustice and current systems of the status quo, and particularly anti-blackness and white supremacy. And so that if you create a context in which Black lives become ungrievable, right? Then just think about the emergence of Black Lives Matter itself as a mantra, right? The founders of that movement, that hashtag movement, are writing that is really initially an expression of grief, right? As news of Trayvon Martin breaks, it is a social media response to say, I'm heartbroken by this, I'm grieved by this. Our lives matter, my lives matter, Black lives matter. That's an articulation of grief, right? And yet the immediate pushback, no, 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 all lives matter, right? Immediately erases what Black Lives Matters is doing as grief work, right? To say that Black life is ungrievable. Now we have to think about all lives. And so there's a question of what lives are invested with worth and value that are significant enough to mourn, to grieve, right? And if there are not lives that are respectable, or they're not seen as being aligned with civil, being civilized, or however you want to think about this, a kind of middle class respectability, then they're ungrievable. And we can think about that in terms of queer lives. We can think about that in terms of Muslim lives. We can think about that in terms of lives at the border, among immigrant lives, right? So certain people who die are just simply expendable, and we cannot grieve them, or we cannot collectively grieve them, because we can't agree that their lives were inherently valuable in the first place. And so religion certainly has some role to play, right, in the possibility of reinvesting lives with meaning and value, at its best. In the same way, so you mentioned the tomb of the unknown soldier. I think about the tomb of the unknown slave that's in New Orleans, right? Now here's maybe a segue. So the tomb of the unknown slave sits outside of a Catholic church there in New Orleans, that was erected precisely because it understands that so many enslaved Africans were murdered and buried unceremoniously, and were treated as ungrievable. And so it was a moment there to say that we have countless lives that were never properly mourned or grieved collectively, even though they might have been by their immediate families. And so this is a monument, or an erection of a monument that allows us to grieve.